love that opening still. It's so cool.
I love the opening. Thanks so much, Diana, for doing that for us.
So good. So good. Hey, welcome everybody to the Isn't Romantic Book Club, where we're going to be discussing Highland Thief by Alyson McLayne. We're also beaming in live, or not live. We're usually beaming in live. Today we're not live. We're pre-recorded into Team Source Books, My Dangerously Dark Darlings, the Isn't Romantic Book Club, Night Garden, and we're also in Casablanca Books.
Oh my God, we've been having like no problems with this. Now all of a sudden Abbie is frozen, but that's okay, Sharon. We'll take it, and hopefully she'll join us back here in a minute. Go ahead, Sharon. You want to introduce yourself?
I know, I was just frozen a few minutes ago. My name is Sharon Wray. I write romantic suspense. My newest book coming out soon, Love's Last Kiss, is coming out soon. And I write about really sexy green berets and exciting mysteries.
Yeah, you do. I didn't get a chance to use your banner. Let me just try if I can find your banner, because it's so fun.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yes. Librarian, dress design, all sorts of
right, exactly. All right. So now I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Diana Muñoz Stewart. I write romantic suspense for the strong of heart. My first series, Black Ops Confidential, is out. Why can I never do this?
Broken Promises is up
Abbie's, is out. And my newest book, Broken Promises, is out now. We're so professional. So Abbie is joining us. I'm so glad you made it back. And we're about to bring another author on here, the person we're here to celebrate her release of. Alyson McLayne is an award-winning writer of contemporary, historical, and paranormal romance. After earning her degree in theater at the University of Alberta, she moved to the west coast of Canada and worked in film for several years before buckling down and finishing her first published book. She lives in Vancouver with her prop master husband, twin 9-year-olds, and a sweet but troublesome chocolate lab named Jasper. Soon to join the family are a couple of crazy kittens. Oh my God, that sounds so exciting. Welcome, Alyson.
Hi, Alyson. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's nice to have you. So crazy kittens, what are they named?
Well, we actually just got them on Friday, and they were originally Shadow and Topaz, so that's in my bio, but my son just switched it to Loki, which I love. I mean, who doesn't love Loki? So
who's Shadow and Loki? Is that it?
What's that?
Shadow and Loki?
Topaz and Loki.
Oh,
Topaz is a little ginger kitty. And my daughter's she's wanted a ginger for so long, and she searched up orange gemstones, and what came up was Topaz, and so she loved it. So he's Topaz, and the other one is Loki, a little gray and black tabby.
So the twins each have a kitten, basically.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cute.
I just can't believe the twins are 9.
What's that?
I can't believe the twins are 9.
I know, right?
I feel like they were just born.
I think that when we met, that was in 2016, right, Sharon? When we first met, I think you had, and they would have been probably 4 still. 4, I think, at that point.
Wow. Yeah, they were little.
Yeah.
Now, do they know you write?
They do. Yeah. Maddie's always, my daughter is always trying to tell me that she says, I've either got to put a shirt on the guys. She doesn't like that they're naked, because like we've always got the naked chest, and she's always
that's so funny. Of course.
Yeah, she thought that I should have a unicorn, because everything's unicorns. I should have a unicorn on the cover, and I'm like, Highland Unicorn. That's my next bestseller.
You can do it. You're creative that way.
Yeah.
Right.
You can make it work.
I know some genres.
So congratulations on the release of Highland Thief, which is the 5th in the series, but you can read it. Like, I started reading it and understood everything right away. It just really is a genuine standalone that you can read.
Thank you.
Is that hard to do?
What's that?
Is that hard to do for you in this series? Because I've read most of them and they do stand alone, but it is bigger experience to read them in order.
Yeah, so there's a conspiracy. I mean, it's called the Sons of Gregor MacLeod. And so Gregor MacLeod is an older laird. He's a father figure to them. And he fostered 5 young boys. He had 5 Highland lairds gathered together like 20 years previous to when the book starts. And they attacked Gregor MacLeod. And Gregor MacLeod was able to defeat them. He knew they were coming. And in defeating them, he wanted to fulfill an oath that he gave to his wife, who he loved very much, and she died in childbirth, and she really wanted to bring peace to the Highlands. So instead of going back and getting vengeance on the lairds and their clan and their family, those who attacked him, he took their sons. So he took 5 sons. Not forever. They were allowed to go back at harvest or, the big holidays, but he basically fostered them, and they were probably ranging from, I think, 7 up to 10. And so his intention was to bond them, knowing they would become lairds. So he bonded the boys as brothers, and he bonded them to him. And so some of the boys had good fathers as well. They now had a good foster father, but some of them had terrible fathers. And Kerr's father is one of those who, he was sort of the head of the big faction that went against Gregor MacLeod. So then the boys grew up together. They're bonded like brothers, but they're foster brothers. And Gregor MacLeod is their foster father. And so I have a conspiracy that runs through all 5 books. Gets solved at the very end. It doesn't play a big role in the first one, but it gets bigger as they go along until book 5 it's the conspiracy is being solved. So that's going through the books, and I've got to bring that one in each time for each book. And of course, I want to introduce all the brothers and Gregor MacLeod into each book, but I usually always I always did choose. I had my hero, and then he would have one of the brothers who was his who would be there from the very beginning and would be his, confidant, best friend, whatever. And then the next book would feature that brother. So in Highland Promise, for example, it was Derek was the hero, and then Lachlan was the best friend that was there. Book 2 was Highland Conquest, and so Lachlan now became the hero. And his sidekick, I don't like the term sidekick, but his sidekick was Callum, who then became the hero in Highland Betrayal. But then I also had to introduce all of the brothers at a certain point. So most of the books, they come in, Gregor MacLeod and the rest of the brothers appear when it's obvious that there's going to be some kind of battle that's going to happen, because it's very action-oriented. And there's battles that happen, a lot of danger, usually, nearing the second half, 2/3 of the way into the book. That's when that really ramps up. And so they all have to appear. So in terms of writing a standalone, I do have to introduce all the backstory, because we've got to get a sense of the conspiracy, and we have to meet all the brothers and get a sense of them as they're going through. But I don't know, you just have to work it in easier ways. When I was writing Highland Thief, there was at one point, you're really playing with that. Is this too much info? Is this an info dump? Because there's a lot to get through, especially when I brought all of the men together in the second chapter. They're all together in the beginning, which is different. Usually it's all they come together at the end. And when they're together, they're talking about the conspiracy. They're talking about what's happened in the past, and they're talking about some of the other women who become wives. So I don't know, when I'm writing the standalone, I just have to understand, play that, walk that fine line of too much information versus not enough information. And most people say it works.
Yeah, I think
it works.
Yeah.
But I know how hard it is to do, though. I mean, we all write series. It's hard.
Yeah, because your books are like that too. So much twists and turns and stuff carrying through each book, Sharon.
Yeah. Well, and Source Books in particular specializes in series. So we've all written books like that, where you're desperately trying to maintain that balance between standalone for the random reader who picks it up versus But
You
the
do a
benefit,
great job, Alyson. Do you have some sort of filing system or?
A series Bible or?
Yeah.
I don't, but I'm going to do one for this next series.
Oh, okay.
Say that right. I just have the series in my head. I plan ahead of time and I outline quite heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always there to keep me in line. I've got that written record.
So you're a plotter.
I mean, a filing system is just, I've got files on my computer, obviously, with files within files for each series.
Right, that's what I meant.
No actual Bible.
Yeah.
No actual Bible. I wish I did.
So, but you're a plotter. You're not a pantser.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I'm definitely a plotter. I give myself, I think, see, when I'm plotting and outlining, because I think about it a lot, and I work through a 3-act, almost a 4-act structure, because I divide the second act into 2. And, when I'm working on it and I'm getting all my turning points, that the story is kind of hanging on those turning points as we go into each different section of the story. I'm outlining in detail. And then, so I do a plot graph, and then I transfer all that to an outline. But when I'm actually writing, so I usually always stick to it, not because I'm forcing characters, just because at that point, the story in my head, I've already worked out most of the details. But I also give myself room as I'm going through when I sense that the pacing is starting to get a little loose, or this scene just doesn't fit here. You start finagling with my timeline and my outline at that point. And when I'm writing, so I'll have a scene that I'm writing, and I'll know the characters and I'll know the gist of the scene, but I don't necessarily know how they're going to get to that emotional high point that I want them to get to. So I just start writing the scene. I haven't necessarily blocked that entire scene, although I'll sometimes have the entire scene in my head, and I will know exactly how it's supposed to go. And then other times I just start writing knowing the kind of the generalities of that scene, but I'll always know the next scene after that and the next scene after that, if you know what I mean. And if I do decide to change things, I often go back and I'll revise my outline, because there's that part of me that I want to know, to see the flow of it and how it's going. And sometimes I might leave the 3rd act. I know that there is going to be, I know what's going to happen in the last act, and I know that it's the big climax, and I might know the location. Like for Highland Thief, I knew we were going to be back at Kerr's castle, and I knew that the big bad villain was going to somehow get Isabel alone, kidnap her, that there was going to be something, that she was going to be taken, and there was going to have to be, after the big battle, that there was going to have to be a smaller battle between Kerr and the ultimate villain, and Isabel too, because I want to keep them active. But
he doesn't know, the villain doesn't know what he's in for with Isabel. She's no shrinking violet.
Yeah.
Not at all. I call her my firecracker, because we see her set up in the 4th book. She and Kerr are both featured as sort of the best friends of the hero and the heroine of book 4. And so we see their relationship, and we see how they natter at each other, and how they banter isn't the right word for what they do. It's like those old time movies, when the hero and heroine, they were really going at each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And
so she's resistant of this relationship. She's not interested.
Yes. And he wants to marry her, but he also knows that there's something that's happened in their past. He has a kind of a vague recollection that of something happening. He doesn't really remember what it is, but he thinks that there's something that's in there that's sort of driven a wedge between them. And that comes out later on. And she acknowledges that, it happened when she was a much younger woman. And so she has to, from an adult woman's perspective, she has to put that into perspective as well. But there's a lot in the story about, so Isabel is a woman who, if she was in our modern day and age, she would be very forward thinking. She would be an active leadership role, and whatever she was doing, she would be smart and feisty and leading. Whatever place she was in, she would be leading in that role. And so here she is in the 1450s, and she is a natural born leader. She has strategic thinking. She's forward thinking. She knows what should be done, or she thinks she does. And she would be really good at it if she was given that chance. And she's held back, not because the Son McLeod mean to do that, but they make a really good point in that she's not married to Kerr. When she's married, the role back then, her position, she'll what's the word?
Standing?
But she'll be connected to her husband, and so it's not like she will still be Gavin's sister.
So she has all that, but you're always making the reader aware that this is a different time.
Yeah, it
is. And even though today she would be her own woman, I mean, so there's kind of that restriction, and I'm sure that feels a little bit limiting for her, and she probably has a lot of confrontation because of that.
She does, and it grates at her. Like, she talks about that. She has this great line where I'm not going to remember it exactly, but she says something along the lines of, it's her internal monologue. She could help these idiot men if they could just see past the end of their swords, the ones made of steel and the ones made of flesh. You know, the idea that it's yes, I'm a woman and I'm damn good at what I would be really good if you would give me a chance. And so she feels very constrained, and there's a part of her that tries to make an impact, and she's a little bit edgy because of that. And so she takes it upon herself to, and this gets set up in Gavin's book. And then of course it just came out in Gavin's book. And then I'm like, oh, I can run with that for book 5 because that's who she is. I've revealed this aspect of her character, but she pulls pranks and she does things to people when they do things that sort of break. It's not, they haven't done something like, murder or theft, something big enough that their laird would have to get involved, but they've done something that has hurt somebody in the clan and that wasn't okay to do. And so she takes notice, and the clan has taken notice, and they hope that she sees, and then she does something to them, and usually some kind of a trick, and it will be something, to make them feel chagrin in some way that,
so it's like a kind of a retribution, or
retribution, but nobody's getting hurt by it. And so this is where she is when the story starts. She has created she calls them traps. She's created a trap for her brother, who is the laird of her clan, Gavin McKinnon, because in Gavin's book, Highland Captive, when Gavin first met his wife, he treated her really poorly. Gavin was in a really bad place because due to the conspiracy, his young son had been kidnapped when he was only 2 to 3, something like that, and had been gone for 2.5 years. And so Gavin had sort of lost himself a little bit. In the beginning of Gavin's book, they find his son finally, and the son is with Deirdre, who becomes the woman that he falls in love with and marries. But he's angry, and he's really angry. He's just angry in general, and he's happy to have a son, but he sees the connection that they have, and it grates at him too, and it annoys him.
Right, it's like almost stolen from him.
Yes. Even though she was innocent in that, he has nowhere else to funnel that anger, and he still hasn't come back to himself. And so in the story, he's the first, let's say, third of the book before he has his revelation. He's trying to separate her from his son, but his son loves her as a mother, and of course he's causing her great harm and doesn't treat her very well. Then he has realization, the story continues, and then eventually, of course, they fall in love. But when we come to book 5, the story opens with Isabel, his sister. She's about to pull one of her traps on him in order to sort of teach him the lesson. Even though he's a laird, she said, like, it's been noted you treated her badly, and the clan won't put up for it, and we're gonna.
She holds people accountable.
Yeah. And it'll make you, she thinks it'll make people feel better. So this is her thing. It's going to make you feel better once that's happened. Whether it's or
I
not.
love that.
But yeah. And then something happens and she tries to get Kerr instead, even though Kerr for her, it doesn't have to do with her clan. It's just because the two of them, you know, he's annoying. He annoys her and she annoys him, and they rile each other up on purpose. And so it switches after a little while.
So here's a weird question. Like, how do you balance like the historical fact end of things with the fiction end of things? Do you know what I'm asking?
I do. There are other historical romance authors, and I really define that I write historical romance. I don't write historical fiction because there's a difference. I wanted a setting, I wanted a place, I wanted how that would affect my story and my characters. But I wasn't necessarily looking for historical facts, not historical facts. That's not the right word. I wasn't necessarily looking for
like events or
in history that would play into my story. Do you know what I mean? So I was very specific in this particular series to not have it, you know, during a very specific historical Scottish historical period. So that wasn't an issue, but I could look up things like the plague, right? So in Gavin's book, Highland Captive, his wife at the time was killed in the plague, and that's where his son went missing from the whole. And I was able to look and see, okay, well, when was there a plague that went through, and what's the likelihood that this could have happened? And okay, this could happen now. Or I look up the third book, my heroine Maggie. She's just a badass with weapons. So I was able to research what kind of weapons she would use, how, if this would be really work or not, and use your imagination. Trying to remember the name of the weapon that she used, but there's a scene where she's trying to escape from a castle in the dark. And Maggie has planned this escape for a long, long time. And she's been practicing in the woods using it's a crossbow, but it's where it's got a winch last, and so she has to crank it up to draw the bow back, not the bow, the string back. And then she shoots it, and then I have to think, all right, so how far could that go? Can that go 300 feet? Would that be able to? So I have to put the tree there, and then would it really be reasonable for her to have any sort of a pulley system? Did they have pulley systems back in that system? And yes, they did. They had pulleys. So can she go on a pulley system across the, the rope that she's attached to the end of the crossbolt? And so,
wow, that really sounds complicated. Every detail.
Yeah. It's the same kind of detail I would think you guys are looking up in your books, just not historically.
Yeah, I'm Googling serial killers and
sister.
Are historical readers who read specifically Highland romances, are they as nitpicky as the readers who read like Regency romances? Because
I don't know, because I don't write Regencies and I don't read very many of them.
Okay.
Are your readers picky?
Yeah, are your readers?
Yeah. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think that individual people will have, I have definitely got a few, I don't want to say snarky comments, because they weren't necessarily snarky. To them, it was just that, oh, this wasn't
pointing
right.
something out,
so,
right.
Somebody, I had Deirdre in book 4, Highland Captive. She is a mathematician. And so she has created, she's teaching her son something about I think it's called the Fibonacci, or I don't have the right word now, but it's that spiral that naturally happens in nature and a lot of things. And so as there's a scene where this is when Gavin is still really upset with her before he's realized she's not at fault, when he just wants to strike out. So they're on horseback, and she's sitting in front of Gavin, and sitting in front of her is Ewan, who is their son, although it's actually Gavin's son. And as that she's talking to him about the spirals, and she names the spiral. And so, of course, I researched to find out, what can I do? What can she be teaching him in the woods? And you know, I didn't go further than 12th grade math. So I had to look that stuff up. And so I had one reader who got quite snarky's not, again, not the right word. One reader who pointed out that wasn't, yes, that was a thing that they knew back then, and the person who discovered it, so it was named after his name, and the person who discovered it did discover it in time for it to be a thing for her to be talking about, but she was saying that they didn't actually give it that name until later, past 1450. So that's where my mistake came in terms of researching. I mean, if that's true, a lot of stuff you're like, well, how do you know? You know, a lot of words that you use, and you're like, how do you really know that this word didn't come out until the, you know, 1580? How do you know that they weren't using it, you know, 100 years earlier? You don't really know. That's just your first time that you've actually seen it in a document and attached a date to it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, some things you have to let go. Other things, I had somebody talk about my wolves in book 2. I have her be attacked by wolves, and the idea was that she was upset, the reader was upset that I put wolves into a bad light, and wolves didn't attack people back then. And then she directed me to an article in my actual, like in the on Goodreads, she directed me to the article that showed that wolves weren't all that bad. And I read the article, and it was all about how travelers had put little huts along the roads, and the reason they'd had, when they're traveling, there were these huts for them to stay in, was because the wolves were bad. Isn't that a sign that there was a danger?
Right.
For a traveler. And so, anyway,
yeah,
that's a neat scene. Do you have a favorite scene in Highland Thief?
The battle scene, the initial battle scene, is really tense on your seat, and it's quite extended. So you have the first act, I guess, you know, you still see them, Kerr and Isabel, fighting each other, and then he kidnaps her, and she pretends like she's going to be eloping, because her tricks to get back at him haven't worked, because he's always chasing off her suitors, and she gets mad at that. So the tricks that she has been pulling, where it's a physical thing, like a pit she's dug and she's covered over, or a tripwire, he spots them all the time.
Oh,
and she's
he
always spots them, and he always says that, I didn't see the trap, I saw you. So he's watching her body language, and she's just so excited that she's going to trap him or trick him, right? And so that never works. So she decided, I can't do this. It's just got to be an out and out trick that's in essence a lie. And so what she tells him is that I may be eloping. So don't get up, you know, don't blame anybody or think you know who it is, and it may not happen, but it just may. And so it's enough to get him on edge, and everybody is telling him, this is just one of Isabel's tricks, you shouldn't get wrapped up in this. But he, of course, chases after her because she's escaped. She's left the castle the middle of the night and pretending that she's going to elope, not knowing that he's going to then turn the tables on her, and he kidnaps her. And so that's when they start to build that trust and the intimacy, when they're away in the Highlands together, but they get attacked. And so when they're attacked, it's really tense and some good action. And that was probably, I like writing action scenes.
Oh, good.
And you know, you're not writing with guns, you're writing with swords and daggers and the ingenuity of what you're going to do. And so that was a lot of fun. I don't want to give too much away. I really enjoyed that scene. The scenes where she's trying to trick him into the trap, those were a lot of fun to read for me, and a lot of fun to for me to write, and also to read. When he she thinks she's finally tricked him, and she's on the boat, and she's like, she's being all dramatic. I will never love you. I love another. And he's like, that's great. I'm coming with you, and then he gets on the boat with her, and she's like, wait, what are you doing? And, he's basically taking her across the lock, in essence, the kidnapping. And so that stuff, you also, as a modern reader, I always try to turn around where they have the second thoughts. I really shouldn't be doing this. It's because obviously kidnapping isn't in our day and age something that
it's frowned on now.
Yeah.
And so then he's like, okay, I should take you home. And then she's like, no, I'm outside of, for the first time, she's outside of the clan, and wow, she wants, and then she refuses to go back. So I always try to turn it so that then she becomes the one that is again driving the action forward, not just him.
That's great.
Yeah.
Alyson, what was it like to finish the 5th in a series? Was it emotionally hard?
No.
Were you ready?
Yeah. So the 5th book took me 2 years to write. And part of that was, there was a family illness. And so it wasn't me, but you're drained, right? Just not knowing what's in dealing with that. So caregiving. So that was a big part of it that drew it out. But I think as well, because it was only the 5th book that I had written that was like published in the series. I'd written other books and I have a few that are self-published, but you're still learning your process. And so a lot of what I remember thinking is just feeling overwhelmed when you become published, especially in sort of, say, book 1 is written, but book 2 and 3, you start the whole process of now you're writing at the same time as you're editing another one, at the same time as you're copy editing a third one, at the same time as you have to learn how to do a newsletter, and you have to learn how to make graphics for promotion. You have to learn how to be on Facebook and all the rest of it. Or like we were just talking about earlier, you've got a website. I don't know how to change it. So I had to learn how to change my website. So there's just so much going on as well that I think that the learning curve outside of the writing is pretty steep. And even though we're traditionally published, I mean, it's steep for a traditionally published author as well as an indie author. There's still so much that we have to do. So I think that each book took longer because you're having to figure out how to manage your time better. And so as I figured out a little bit, I took Becca Syme's course, the Write Faster.
Great course.
And and you sort of start to learn. It didn't happen really quickly. Like I had some aha moments where you just figure out, so that's why I'm busy all the time. But when I look back at my day, I don't feel like I've got much done in terms of word count or whatever. So I think that there was just so much that I was taking on that extended the time of the writing, and then the illness. And so that when I had the 5th book, I was so overdue writing it that I was just like so thankful and excited. Oh my God, it's done. It was actually because there's such a pressure when you're overdue on your books, and it should have been handed in really 9 months ago, and you're still pushing, and things happen that you couldn't have foreseen. And the pandemic had started as well, which dragged everything out, because I was very nearing the end when it started, but I still had 30,000 words to write. And so that what maybe would have taken me a month, I remember thinking I have to now extend my deadline another month, because you just stop. I did anyways for that first.
Right, and your kids were home, so that's difficult.
Your kids were home, so you go through summer holidays, and they're there, and So,
well, congratulations on
I know. Doing it. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And are you working on book 6, or are you taking a little break?
Well, 2 things. So the series, the Foster brothers, the sons of Gregor MacLeod, is done, but I've had a lot of requests to write a book for Gregor MacLeod, the patriarch. And I'm going to do that. So I don't know exactly when, but I have a story in mind. I have a hero and I have a hero in mind, and I will write that book. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I have signed another contract with Source Books with my editor, Krista Dazier. And so I sold for 4 books. There's a character in book 3. So my heroine is Maggie McDonnell, and the first hero in the new series is going to be one of her brothers. One of her brothers dies in the book, but the other one, who shows up at the very end of Callum and Maggie's book, his name is John McDonnell. And so he is going to be the hero for the first book of a new series set in the Highlands called Second Sons.
Oh, neat.
Great.
Oh.
So that's the book you're working on, Second Sons.
Second Sons. That's the series of Second Sons, and I don't actually have a title for it. I have my own title, which is The Laird's Rebel, but that's not official. Probably won't say that.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing we have for sure is, because the story is about second sons that could have been Lairds, but they're the second sons, and so they all met the border skirmishes. So for whatever reason, the 4 men who are the band of brothers in the second series have left their homes, some sort of wound that's happened that they need to get away, and losing themselves in battle. And it's when they're sort of sellswords to the different border lairds and different battle skirmishes that are often going on at the border there between England and Scotland. So that's where they meet. And so they become their own band of brothers, and they're the second sons, because they aren't lairds. They're sons of lairds or chiefs, sort of had the opportunity to be a chief, and then they didn't take it. Of course, through the series of the 4 books, each one of them have to, in whatever way, whether it's somebody dies or whether it's that they take over, they have to fight for it. They become laird of their clans, and the women who are the women that they meet are with them all. 3 of them definitely from the beginning, and they all have sort of, there's a mystery. The women, there's a big mystery to their childhood and who they are, and they're not sisters. 2 of them are sisters of the heart who've grown up together. 2 of them are actual sisters, but who were separated as children. And so they're having to discover the mystery of their childhood and who they actually are.
Wow.
And at the same time as there's a big conspiracy. In this one, I did pull in a lot more history into it. And the king will play a role, not a huge role, but he's there.
I'm just impressed with your ability to keep all these stories straight. And even though you haven't written them yet, obviously, what's, the basics of them already. That's fantastic.
Well, I planned the second series. I planned it out from the beginning to the end. I haven't gone into each story and done every detail of it, but I have I have an overview of each story, because there's conspiracy, and I have an overreaching arc for each story as well.
And when is that first one due?
End of October.
Oh, okay. Coming up faster than you probably want.
Well, as well, because you think that you always think it's going to take less time to do something when it does. And because I percolate a lot ahead of time, that's a lot of time just figuring out your story for the entire series. I wanted to do that before I started book 1. And then I'm also going to do a prequel novella for that, which is not part of my source books deal, but the prequel, I had to plan that, and I had to plot that out, outline it. And then, of course, when you get into August and I've got the other book coming out, then you think it won't be too bad. I can just, put together a takeover, or I can do this blog in 4 hours. And of course, it takes 3 days.
Right.
And all of a sudden your August is gone, and you're into September, and you just gotta keep plugging. And Source Books, my publisher, is really great at acknowledging that things, or they have been with me and said this from the very beginning, that sometimes things take longer. Your creativity cannot necessarily be forced. It's not that they don't want things in on time, because I'm sure they do, but I've just found that they are really supportive in that way.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
And they've done a fantastic job, I think, with your covers.
Yes, I
think
agree.
I agree.
They're amazing. Sharon was saying too, I think that this last one might be the favorite.
Yes. So this is Highland Thief. He's pretty. Let's put it over there. My name.
It's a great cover.
He's
really
spectacular, isn't he?
Yes, he really is.
When my editor sent it to me, I think, when they kind of give you that page where they're like, do you have any ideas for cover? And they're not necessarily asking you, because
Yeah.
They're not.
and, you're like, what you did the last one, just change the guy. And I had sort of in my mind, so Kerr is big. He's the biggest of the brothers, and he's sort of loud, and he's an excellent warrior. But he loves kids, so he's like always playing with them. So he's kind of a really big character, physically and emotionally. There's a bigness to him. And so I had said, Jason Momoa, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was sort of what I had thought in terms of really big, the dark hair, the bit of a. I don't think of him in the book as being he's not really gorgeous. Like some of the guys are just like Gavin, for example. This one in the book has always been known as sort of being really beautiful man. And he gets sort of wasted away a little bit because of what happens with the son. But Kerr had that Jason Momoa thing, or it was kind of like animal magnetism.
Yeah.
A real powerful man.
Mm-hmm.
And, so when I think I just wrote down Jason Momoa on my sheet, they're like, any ideas? And I'm like, can you get Jason Momoa?
Right.
And,
Sure.
Yeah. And they came back with this cover, and they sent it to me. And my editor just wrote in there, she's something like, even better than Jason or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. One line, and it was like, wow, yes. One of those covers where you just totally love at the beginning, and you accept that.
Oh, that is awesome.
That's wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy for you, Alyson. Can't wait for Tuesday.
I know, right?
So exciting.
And the new series too. That's exciting.
I know.
So for the Christmas novella, it's a novella, right?
It's a prequel novella.
Oh, prequel novella. Okay. So, and I said Christmas because I from my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, so that'll be out after that one. So I figured it was around Christmas, but it's not. It's probably not Christmas, right?
Well, I have to write it still, and then this is something I'll be self-publishing, and so I will be selling it, but it will also it's intended as a marketing.
Right.
Well, because of how the story was set up. I wanted the characters meet in Edinburgh. So that is John McDonnell, and the woman he's with is Cassidy Burns in that prequel novella. And in the first book, it's the same characters, but the prequel novella is setting up a bit of this conspiracy that runs through, setting up the characters, setting up where they meet in Edinburgh. And then what happens is they split up. She takes something from him and from the villain, and she leaves. And so then there's like a year and a half, I think, in which time John has gone back. He's had to reclaim his clan. He's had to sort things out there. And that was all, like, reclaiming of the clan was all in book 3, Highland Betrayal. So I had to sort of establish that this happens, because I can't just rewrite over what I've already written for Betrayal. And so then the book 1 actually starts where he's now laird. John is now laird of his clan, and we learn that he's been looking for Cassidy. And so somebody comes in and says, we found her. We know where she is. And so then that starts the story when he goes.
I just love the breadth of your world. I mean, it's just so real, and you can hear it in your voice how real it is to you too, that you have all these details. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's lovely that you've agreed to share with some of the people in the different groups. So we're recording this ahead of time, but this is premiering on Alyson's release day, the 24th. And so Alyson has agreed to send one person from each of the groups where this is streaming a copy of one of her books. And to be entered, all you have to do is ask a question or comment where you see this video, under where you see this video, and you'll be entered. And then we'll leave that up for a day or so, and then pick the winner.
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess we'll notify the winner within each group.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your day with us in Isn't It Romantic Book Club, because you're going to be taking over. You're going to come in for the whole day and meet the whole group and interact and all of that fun stuff.
Yes, so definitely. I think that after this, probably right after now, I will come in and I'll do some giveaways and put up some graphics and maybe some fun games and yes, all that fun stuff.
And just reminding everybody, on Friday, she'll be in the Dangerously Dark Darlings as an author on the couch doing a takeover. So
yeah. And that was fun. I did that interview. Abbie sent me some questions.
Yep.
Oh, that is fun. You got a busy week ahead of you.
I know. Release days are so exhausting.
I didn't think I could get anything done in August on the other book. About it. Yeah.
Well, releasing a book is a big deal, and we're so happy for you. Thank you so very much for stopping by here. And you guys, we'll put links for the books underneath this chat as well.
Yep.
So, all right.
Definitely.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.